Hey, this is Kasim with Solutions 8. I wanted to go over the way that we do key phrase research. And this is actually, I think, really important regardless of the type of marketing you plan on performing. Here's what I mean. When I bring up key phrase research to clients and strategic partners, sometimes vendors, they'll say, "Oh no, don't worry about it. We're not doing SEO." And what bothers me about that is I think you're leaving a massive amount of money on the table. To be frank, you're missing on an opportunity. Just because you're not doing traditional quote unquote SEO doesn't mean that the key phrases still aren't important. Because no matter where you put your media, your content, key phrase relevance is still going to be a factor. So if you're going on social channels, if you're going on YouTube, if you're going inside an app's directory, regardless of what you're doing, you're creating content on some level in some way. The internet is nothing more than a conduit for content dissemination. So when you're creating your content, it makes perfect sense to create content around the key phrases you know work. I use three tools to do my preliminary key phrase research. This isn't the only thing that we use. It's not the end all be all by any means. But I like to do this when I'm first talking to a client or trying to, start a new campaign or whatever, because it helps get me centered and it lets me know about what's going on. So I'm going to give you a really specific example. And this is one that I like because it helps shine a light on why key phrase research is so important. Let's say that I wanted to go after website design on some level, some way. We're digital marketers, but we do website design as an ancillary service. So let's pretend like this was a core service of mine. Let's say I'm talking to a website designer who wants to help market his business. One of the very first things I do is I hit SEMrush. Now I've got a paid campaign, so I'm going to see a whole lot more than you'll see if you have a free campaign. But what's really cool about SEMrush, and big pat on these guys back, by the way, they give you a ton of stuff for the freebie. They let you see a lot of really good information. So I'm a pretty big fan. I'm not an affiliate or anything. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. But they're worth looking at. We chose SEMrush over SpyFu, Espionage. All those are the guys. We tested them all. And these guys, I think, give you the most amount of data. And they've got one of the fair pricing models. So when I jump in and I look at website design, one of the first things I want to see is the phrase match keywords. And the reason I want to see this is I want to see how robust an industry this is. What you'll start to notice is the more phrase match keywords there are, typically the more robust a market you're looking at. And really it just means that this is the number of variances that people are using to search for this particular topic. So again, I tend to jump right at this, and this also shows me synonyms, things that I wasn't necessarily thinking about as far as how we might approach this market. You can look at the volume and the number of search results that kind of give you the same amount of information. But the reason this isn't, I think, as relevant as the phrase match keywords is because you can have one or two or three phrases that have a massive amount of volume, right? Like if you were to search for Tiger Woods, he's gonna have a ton of volume, but he's not gonna have a lot of variance. Where website design has a massive amount. If I were to click view full report, you're just going to see a ton of phrase match key phrases. And SEMrush is acting a little slow today. Right when I gave him a pat on the back too, isn't that embarrassing? So you'll notice that, you just look at how robust this list is, and then as we scroll down, we start to see phrases that have obviously a smaller volume, but these are your long tail key phrases. So these are phrases that in the very beginning you're going to be able to tackle with much greater efficacy than some of your short tail key phrases. So I'm going to head back. The next thing I like to look at is the paid advertising copy. Even if you're not doing paid ads, this lets you know what the market is doing, where they are, where they're performing. And right now I see one that's a huge red flag. Simple and beautiful templates, free domain, and your website from $1.99. So if I'm a website designer and I'm thinking about running PPC, one thing to be cognizant of is the fact that this is a heavily commoditized industry. There's a lot of really big players in it. A ton of people are spending a ton of money, and they're not charging anything because they're going after the long game. GoDaddy's notorious for this. They'll just drop the hell out of a price to get people onto their platform because they know once they're on the platform, they're never going to leave. So if you're a custom website designer and you want to charge 5, 10, 15 grand, be aware that in the paid space, there's a lot of noise where it's $199 free trial, etc., free domain and hosting, and a lot of these are hosting companies that just want to give you a free website to earn your hosting business, which is fine, more power to them. But that's something to be cognizant of. I always look at the organic search results. Again, even if you're not going after SEO, you want to know who's in the space, who are the players, what are they doing, where do they rank, etc. What's cool about SEMrush that some other tools don't do is they actually show you not just the brand that's ranking, but they show you the page that's ranking for that brand. So if I go to designcontest.com/website design, that's one of the very first results. And obviously we know with Hummingbird and whatnot, this is a contextual or context remove. This is just kind of white label search result. So I look at those things, and then one of the things that I really want to see, kind of on an ongoing basis, is related keywords. Related keywords are going to show me what else is out there, how valuable it is, and from a semantic perspective, what I might want to be looking at. Now, a lot of these are just kind of misspelling the website design, but if I were to go far enough down, I'm willing to bet I find like a website development is what I'm looking for. Something that's not quite website design, but it's like an arm's length away. And the reason I look for these type of key phrases is I want to see if there's a pocket of the market that I can carve out for myself. Might be a whole lot smaller, but from an empathic standpoint, I know the people searching for it really mean the same thing. Website design and website development. Now, I'm going to piss off a bunch of website developers. I know there's a difference. You and I know that. But most of the people, let's say 80% of the people that are searching, they might not be aware of that. So if you're going after website design and it's hyper competitive, but website development's not quite as competitive, then you might want to carve out website development. And here we go. Bam, here's website development all the way down here. The volume is low and interesting. But the cost is actually a little bit lower than some of these other phrases too. At 13 bucks, I think website design was clocking in a lot higher than that. So that's just one example. And really it's going to be industry specific. Whatever industry you're looking at, you're not always going to be aware of the semantics. So one really good example that I'll give you is we had a client that wanted optimized for dental instruments. He's a medical device manufacturer, and he was optimizing for dental instruments. Well, we didn't do very good key phrase research in the very beginning. And we missed the fact that dental tools was a semantically relevant key phrase that was a whole lot cheaper. And so we were going after dental instruments. We were actually doing pretty well with dental instruments, but about 90 days into it, we kind of caught our mistake and we started bidding on dental tools as well. It was a little less relevant because a dental tool can be a whole lot of things. It can be a SaaS product. You could have like a file sharing tool that could be a dental tool. But the guys that we did get that were relevant converted just as well. And the clicks ended up being cheaper because nobody else was bidding on it. So first thing I do is I hit SEMrush. I look at the overview. I look at the paid ad campaigns. I try to see how many phrase match key phrases there are. I want to see how robust it is. Once I feel comfortable that the phrase is of some value, and of course website design is of some value, right? But like if we were to do arborist, can I spell Albuquerque? Let's see. Did I even spell arborist right? Is that embarrassing? Yeah, I sure did. Look at me. So arborist Albuquerque has just got nothing. And it's not worth going after. So if you had an arborist from Albuquerque come at you and say, hey, what can you do for me? You might want to look at this and say, well, why don't we go look at some other stuff? So hit SEMrush, do the key phrase rank check thing. The next thing I do is I go over to Google Trends. Now I'm going to plug in website design into Google Trends and check this out. This thing is going to blow your mind. You ready? Oh my God! Who would have thought that website design is actually trending down? That blew my mind when I first saw it. It might not blow your mind. You might be smarter than me and realize, oh yeah, ClickFunnels and Leadpages and Infusionsoft, all these guys are kind of replacing website design. It's getting so easy that people don't pay for it quite as much as they just know how to do it. Or they've already got their guy and markets are saturated, et cetera, et cetera. But still, shocks me. This might shock a client. So if you're talking to a client who wants help marketing website design, hit up Google Trends. Let them know what's going on. You might want to say, hey, bud, get out of the business. Now, be really careful with these footnote spots. You'll notice that this shows that it's kind of trending back up. But realize that you've got some of those, it's like a heartbeat, right? It's always going to be that way. So I look at aggregate data. The closer we get to the present time, the more relevant that data is, of course. But just because the last 60, 90 days shows, a way different trend than everything else, it might insinuate a change in trend, but don't trust it. I wouldn't make any decisions off of anything that, that doesn't have a large enough sample size as far as data is concerned. And with trending, I think you need to look at, base it off of by the quarter. So you need 2 or 3 quarters of data before I'd really start to trust that. So now here's what's cool about Google Trends, because I can compare it to other phrases. So now here's website design versus digital marketing. And wow, now website design still has more volume. But digital marketing is trending way up, where website design is trending way down. And you'll notice towards the end of the year, people start caring about both of them. And I imagine that's probably pretty true for a lot of phrases. You've got Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all that stuff, so it just kind of kills the B2B searches. But I think it's really interesting that digital marketing is overtaking website design. And if I were chatting with a website designer, I might say, hey, why don't we start finding out how website design relates to digital marketing so that the campaigns we build for you have some level of longevity. So worth looking at. And again, you can build comparisons until you're blue in the face. Let's do landing pages. Oops, let me fix that. And landing page is about static, which is interesting. Again, I didn't expect that at all. So hit up SEMrush, then we hit up Google Trends, and then we go to Google's key phrase planner. So now that I've got a couple of websites, oh, by the way, I hit search volume and trends. They've got a really cool key phrase tool that'll show you relevant key phrases, but I actually kind of prefer SEMrush's for that, which is funny because I'm pretty sure that SEMrush pulls from Google. I just like the way it looks better. I think it's easier to browse. So I want to come over here and look at search volume and trends directly from Google. And so I'll come in and say website design, and I'll give it digital marketing. Now, this information is actually available on SEMrush. This is kind of a redundant search, but the reason I pull this up is because the information doesn't always match. And so I can see that digital marketing, I can see the average monthly searches. This is averaged out over a year. What Google calls high competition, and this is based off of AdWords bids, how competitive the key phrase is to pay for. And then there's suggested bid. Now, Google's suggested bid is actually usually pretty on point. What's interesting about Google's ranking algorithm, the bid is based off of, I think, something called a Kinsey bid system. And what that means, it's the same thing that Facebook uses, but what that means is the highest bidder wins, but they pay the second highest bid. So if you bid $10 and I bid $10 and a penny, I win, but I only pay $10. And what this does is it gets everybody to bid the value of the product instead of bidding against their competitor. And so usually when Google gives you suggested bid, it's a pretty on-point bid. However, I'll tell you that I mean, AdWords is one of our primary service offerings, and we're usually able to beat this number up for a lot. You can get it down 10, 20% with relative ease across most industries, and I mean we can cut it in half sometimes if we increase relevant score and carve out specific pockets and really conversion optimize. So the reason I'm looking at this is I want to see the volume search, and I also want to be able to see the suggested bid. And these suggested bids are comparable. It looks like digital marketing is beating out, or excuse me, website design is beating out digital marketing, which we knew from the trends data. So that's key phrase research. That's, I mean, you just want to see what phrases are doing, what relevant phrases are out there, what semantics you're not paying attention to, where the trend lines are going, and then what people are paying for them. And when you have that information, it gives you the opportunity to really know how viable a specific market is if you're trying to, capture that market. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, honestly and truly. I also hope that you subscribe or comment or like or share, do whatever it is that people do, because I'm trying to provide value here, and I'd love some feedback. If I haven't mentioned it before, I'm the author of a best-selling book. I'd love for you to buy that. I'll put a link to it in the footer, the description of this video. But that's all I got for you guys. Appreciate you watching it, and I'm sure I will see you next time. Thanks.